Hi, everyone. I am about to have a conversation with a friend of mine who is based in Wellington. And we've decided to call this conversation Getting Gritty because we wanted to talk about grit and resilience. So, Humphrey, I'm just going to have you go ahead and bring yourself into this conversation right now and introduce us where you are. Tell us where you are and tell us what we're looking at because you have designed this gorgeous backdrop.
Hello, yes, kia ora. Indeed, I have. So I am up here in Wellington, in my little bubble halfway between the hospital and the zoo. And this backdrop, actually, yes, this backdrop was a photo that I took a long time ago, back when we could go outside of good old Wellington Harbour from up on Mount Vic. Part of what I do, get out there and take photos and videos and do things with drones, all that kind of fun stuff. And yes, I love the title, good old Getting Gritty, even though we're wearing our formal Friday best.
Well, I'll share a secret with you. I wasn't wearing my formal Friday best. I was in my lockdown sweatshirt,
I wasn't
which
going to
is
tell
pretty.
them. I wasn't going to tell them.
I'm going to share that because I have been very comfortable and I have absolutely no need to dress up. But because you were dressed up, I did. But let me also explain that the reason I reached out is that Humphrey and I have been friends for years. I met him when he actually spoke at a function representing an organization that he'll tell you about in just a second. But let me just say that he is the embodiment of grit and resilience. So, Humphrey, I'll let you take it from there.
Gosh, it was a while ago, wasn't it, that we first met? Yeah, so I do a lot of work for the charity for people with my condition. It's called epidermolysis bullosa, but we'll just call it EB for short. And the short version is that basically what happens is my skin isn't attached properly, and that causes damage and scarring and means for my entire life I've had to be careful with literally everything. And it has ultimately resulted in the loss of the use of any of my fingers. I have to spend 4 hours out of every day getting bandaged and medical treatments happening. And then at about lunchtime, we can get on with things like this and living as normal a life as possible,
Yeah.
ignoring as much as possible, compensating for or ignoring the fact that this goes on in the mornings.
Well, and you just touched on two concepts there, ignoring or compensating for. So when I reached out to you and asked how things were in your bubble, my question to you is very different from questions that I will, or answers actually, that I would get from other people that I ask, because I know that your days require all kinds of preparation and
Yep.
mental resilience. And it goes into that compensating and ignoring. So what does life look like in your bubble compared to what it normally looks like? And has the lockdown changed much?
It's interesting. I think relative to many, many people out there, things haven't changed a heck of a lot for me. Um, because of the nature of my condition, I've been a freelancer and working from home for the last couple of years because actually, the hours of my day vary that I am able to do things depending on what my condition is up to, what medical appointments I've got, and all that sort of stuff, which made it really difficult often working in an office environment. I've never been able to do a 9 till 5. I was only ever able to be in an office part time. So actually being able to be a freelancer, although can't say I don't miss corporate employment in terms of a paycheck, but being able to be a freelancer has given me the freedom to work around the hours that I have physical capacity as well as the
Yes.
rest of it.
So, work around. This is really important because as we're all facing sort of a diminishment of what we are able
Yeah.
to do on a day to day basis, you have created this workaround, a freelance job. But let me just share with everybody that what you've chosen to do is not just sitting there in your office, which is cool and well decorated and gives a hint about what you do, which is video editing and taking videos, but you operate drones, you edit. Tell us more about your activities as a freelancer right now?
It's a pretty varied CV. I'm always having to re-edit it if I'm applying for jobs, because the angles of the many broad range of things that I do are pretty different. The reason I have this whole backdrop going on here is, as you said, I love content creation, and my main focus for content creation at the moment is live broadcasting with video games and motivational stuff via the Twitch platform. And so this is actually all the reason why I have the ability to create backdrops like this that we've got going on in the video. And what I've got going on here in the real world is because of the software and tools I use for live streaming and live gaming. And also other things. Yesterday I did a workout video, which I've been doing once a week while we've been in lockdown. I have a personal trainer that I used to see back in the real world who is now doing virtual things as well. So I signed him up to virtually take me through a PT session that I then share with the world live and interact.
And you have a YouTube channel that usually broadcasts those workouts. Oops. Called No Hands, No Excuses.
And that's where it all began. So 3 years ago now, I was doing corporate comms, corporate community engagement work. And then once that wrapped up, corporate life redundancies, things like that happened. And I realized it was an opportunity to pursue the passion I had for the art of camera work, basically, whether it was photography, videography, using a drone, anything that involved getting a new perspective and a new view out there of what is going on in the world from my view as a disabled content creator. I was up for it. So I started a YouTube channel, No Hands, No Excuses. And, and it's just grown from there.
What is it called? You punch. What is it? You're punching a punching bag. What's this
boxing,
sport called? Or
well,
boxing. Okay, that's one word. I thought there was another phrase for it when you do it in a gym.
Oh, yeah, it's always been. I know. You're right. There is a class for that.
Yeah,
but
but that's not it.
I've never done it as a class because I always just had to be so careful. I couldn't join at the pace and the physicality of what would happen in a class, so I always just did it with my personal trainer. But yeah, if you check out that YouTube channel, some of those early videos were, they were certainly, punching.
Punching. And this is the image that comes to mind. You talked about being made redundant, losing your job, and that's a punch in the gut for anyone.
Oh, yeah.
But you bounce right back up again. And that to me is resilience. And not only do you bounce back, you say, okay, let's view this as an opportunity. So then you reframe, and then you actually reinvent in a new direction as a freelancer. And then doing what you're doing with all the video editing and working on that Twitch platform takes a lot of learning, upskilling in technology. And a lot of us have tried to do that over this lockdown as we've tried to learn how to use Zoom or other techniques online.
Yeah.
So how do you keep that motivation? Because it's exhausting and it can be very off-putting when you don't pick it up quickly. So how do you keep your positivity up? And how do you keep your motivation to keep trying?
That is a good question. How do I keep at it? Gosh, so the whole learning how to do this thing is because to me, what I can do with a camera has been fascinating. Often even the cameras themselves are tools designed for people with 10 fingers at a minimum to hit all the buttons and flick all the switches and get all the things. And, it's not a lie when people... it's a common kind of joke within the photography world of, photography yoga, where camera people are always trying to get themselves in ridiculously awkward positions to get the angles on the shots that they want and all that sort of stuff. But when you're getting out there in a wheelchair for half of the work that I go and do, you've just got to accept that the angle is the angle you've got, and that's the perspective that you've got. And sometimes that's a really unique view. And until you put it out there in the world, other people will never conceptualize it. And that just is something that I guess for me has often happened organically. But in terms of the learning new things and the constantly adapting, I mean, I think the catchphrase at the moment is resilience, resilience, resilience. But to me, an ability to do that, that's survival. It's not resilience. It's literally, that's how I learned to survive, because since I was a kid, I've been figuring out, how do I adapt holding a pencil, or how do I adapt, before technology existed that involved touch screens and all that kind of stuff. It was, how do I learn in this environment that's designed for people with fingers, and, playgrounds for people that don't have skin that fall off, or interactive activities for kids that always involve just running around in ways that to me seem quite life-threatening. So adapting and modifying
that were life-threatening.
Yeah, literally.
Sorry to step on you, but yeah, that were life-threatening to you. And I think that touches on, obviously, a theme that we're all facing right now, is that survival is at stake for some of us, not all of us, but we all have a role in this. Protecting each other can protect someone else's life. So survival, so survival, I guess, gives you the chance to say, okay, this is my new perspective. I'm just going to have to accept this.
Yeah.
But there's another reaction that people can have, and that is to react rather than respond, react out of fear. So when you talked about the kids running around and putting their lives in danger, at least from your perspective, how do you deal with the fear that crops up? Because your health, you have to manage, and you face challenges all the time.
It wasn't easy. Growing up, children fear what they don't understand. And for a lot of children, the concept of a genetic condition not being something that was of any threat to them was too much. Kids can't grasp that. At least not back then, they didn't. I think, actually, from what I've seen, kids these days are far more aware of disability and equality and equity and concepts like that just didn't exist growing up in the late 80s, early 90s, going through school during those periods. And so it was actually just, in a lot of ways, very isolating. That was survival, was isolation. But that, in and of itself, is one of the things that has given me a leg up in modern times, now that we're all isolated. Being able to be familiar with, actually, how do you interact with people via technology rather than via a physical ability to get out there and meet face to face, is second nature to me now.
Some things that become second nature are hard to unpack, but you're unpacking them quite well, and I certainly appreciate that. And I guess I would ask you, for those who are struggling and they look at you and they think, wow, as they should, as I do, because let me just throw in there, Humphrey also ran for, was it city council last year as well?
Last year.
I mean, you are unafraid, you are fearless, and you just throw yourself into everything. Exactly. And it doesn't mean that you actually have to succeed. And this is my point. So people are looking at you saying, wow, well, he tries things. Some things don't work out, but he bounces back.
I think I should have won that, but it was close.
Good. Well, and I guess from your point of view, what would you advise people who are struggling to do what is now second nature for you?
I think one of the biggest things I can advise is to find people you can talk about it with. Find people that you can, not necessarily in a counseling type of way, but even just bouncing ideas back and forth from people, because you don't know what you don't know. There may be solutions out there. And for myself, a lot of the solutions I come up with are from adapting concepts that other people have had. The world now for people growing up with my condition is incredible, because people like me went through it, and people before me went through it, and now it's all online. There's so many things online that people can research, or that can mean that we're not actually having to reinvent the wheel every time. It's just a case of shaping it to suit our needs, rather than than trying to start from scratch. And so even though it feels like it's really overwhelming and really difficult, I think opening up to having those conversations with people about why it's difficult can often lead to solutions that you don't see yet.
Mm-hmm. And that means allowing yourself to be vulnerable and ask for help.
Unfortunately for some, yeah, it's not always easy to do. I think especially in New Zealand, we have a very high regard for our self-sufficiency as a people. But growing up with a disability, you learn that independence isn't necessarily about what I can physically do for myself. It's how can I live the life I want to live while asking for the help I need. That's what independence is.
That is just pure gold, Humphrey. Thank you. I think you need to say that again. Independence isn't being able to do everything for yourself, but live the life you want while asking for the help that you need. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. I couldn't think of a better way to end this. I certainly appreciate you talking to me. We were sort of bouncing around ideas about titles, and I decided on Getting Gritty because it's not easy. Grit really suggests that there's some friction there. It is not comfortable.
Oh gosh, no. It's not comfortable in the least. But that's half of what it's about, is pushing out of that comfort zone to make a change. Because if we're always in our comfort zone, nothing's changing.
Exactly right. Well, thank you so much for sharing your incredible perspective.
Thank you for having this idea to do this. It's such a cool thing to be able to pull together our resources and make something.
Yep. So no hands, no excuses. We can find you online and social media.
Everywhere. Literally everywhere.
Very cool. Humphrey, thank you so much.
Hey, no worries. Thank you, Palace. We'll talk soon.